Hello everybody, it's Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to book reviews. So today we're going to do this. Well, okay, so here's the book, right? So this is Vorkosigan's Game, which was a book that Lois McMaster Bujold published with two novels in it. So Borders of Infinity is one of them, and the Vor Game is the other. And the Vor Game as a novel won the 1991 Hugo Award. Now, the reason I bought a book, because why would you buy a book with one novel in it when you can buy a book with two? Like, let me ask you that. If I want to read Borders of Infinity, I can. Now, I read this one first. This actually takes place 15 years, 16 years, 17 years after, no, 20 years after Berayer, something like that. And so, let's catch up. There's some spoilers for Berayer here. So if you don't want to know how Berayer turns out or what goes on, then don't watch this. Just read Berayer and then watch this. So what happens in Berayer is Cordelia gets pregnant with Miles, her son, Miles Vorkosigan, and a gas attack causes him to be permanently disabled. Like, he ends up with, incredibly breakable bones and kind of like dwarfism. Right. So he is a character produced by an incredibly masculine man society who happens to be deformed, and it's through Cordelia's kind of fighting that he ends up, his father loves him, but like all of society has kind of considers him a freak, and he has had to fight his whole life to kind of prove that he is worthwhile as a human being, and that's an interesting psychology to have, right? It's a very interesting kind of thing to go on. However, here's the thing: is he's like a superhero, right? Like, this writes him like he's the greatest, most capable human being who's ever lived, which is boring. That's boring. Super boring. So, there you go. It's just that. It's just that. It's just boring. It's just boring. It's just at some point in one of these books, he has taken over a group of, like, I don't know, space pirates or something and made himself an alternate persona as, like, Admiral Naismith or something, and he's reassuming that surprise to take over this group of, like, mercenaries or something. So, like, he's climbed up the ranks and taken over this group of, like, intergalactic pirates or something. You're like, not intergalactic, but, like, deep space pirates. And yeah, okay, I guess. I guess that's a thing you can write about if you want. I don't know why. I don't know why you would. I don't know why. But these stories were established before Berayer, right? So Berayer's like the prequel backstory. It does a really good job to this kind of story that I find meh. Which is that Miles Vorkosigan is like the world's greatest hero, or the universe's greatest hero, who just happens to be deformed, so everybody thinks that he's, this freak. It's okay. It's okay. There are really wonderful ways you could kind of have written these things. I just think Louise Bujold kind of missed the mark in this one. Now, later we're going to talk about the book written 3 years after this, which I really loved for very weird reasons, right? Like, so, we'll talk about that too. Obviously we're going to talk about every Hugo Award winner, so, yeah. So let's just talk a little bit, let's just read some stuff. Miles sat trembling on a bench in a glass-in cubicle normally used for bio-isolation in the Triumph sick bay, and watched Elena tie General Metsov to a chair with a tangle cord. It would have given Miles a smug sense of turnabout if the interrogation upon which they were about to embark was not so fraught with dangerous complications. Elena was disarmed again. 2 stunner-armed men stood guard beyond the soundproof, transparent door, glancing occasionally. It had taken all Miles' eloquence to keep the audience for this initial questioning limited to himself, Oser, and Elena. How hot can this man's information be? Oser had inquired irritably. They let him go out in the field. Hot enough that I think you should have a chance to think about it before broadcasting it to a committee, Miles had argued. You'll still have the recording. Metsov looked sick and silent, tight-mouthed and unresponsive. His right wrist was neatly bandaged. Awakening from stun accounted for the sick. The silence was futile, and everyone knew it. It was a kind of strange courtesy not to badger him with questions before the fast Penta cut in. Now Oser frowned at Miles. Are you up to this yet? Miles glanced down at his still shaking hands. As long as no one asks me to do brain surgery, yes, proceed. I have reasons to suspect the time is of the essence. Oster nodded to Elena, who held up a hypospray to calibrate the dose, pressed it to Metsov's neck. Metsov's eyes shut briefly in despair. After a moment, his clenched hands relaxed. The muscles of his face unlocked to sag into a loose, idiotic smile. The transformation was most unpleasant to watch. Without the tension, his face looked aged. Elena checked Metsov's pulse and pupils. "All right, he's all yours, gentlemen." She stepped back to lean against the doorframe with folded arms, her expression almost as closed as Metsov's had been. Miles opened his hand. "After you, Admiral." Oster's mouth twisted. Thank you, Admiral." He walked over to stare speculatively into Metsov's face. "General Metsov, is your name Stanis Metsov?" Metsov grinned. "Yeah, that's me." "Presently second in command, Randall's Rangers?" "Yeah." "Who sent you to assassinate Admiral Naismith?" Metsov's face took on an expression of sunny bewilderment. "Who?" "Call me Miles," Miles suggested. "He knows me under a pseudonym." His chance of getting through this interview with his identity undisclosed equaled that of a snowball surviving a wormhole jump to the center of a sun. But why rush to the complications? "Who sent you to kill Miles?" "Cavi did, of course. He escaped, you see. I was the only one she could trust. The bitch." Miles' brow twitched. "In fact, Cavillo shipped me back here herself," he informed Oster. "General Metsov was therefore set up. But to what end? My turn now, I think." So, okay. Oster made the after your gesture and stepped back. Miles tottered off his bench and into Metsov's line of sight. Metsov breathed rage even through the fast penta euphoria, then grinned vilely. Miles decided to start with the question that had driven him most nuts the longest. What target was your ground attack planned to be upon?" "Vervain," said Metsov. Even Oster's jaw dropped. The blood thudded in Miles' ears in the stunned silence. "Vervain is your employer?" Oster choked. God, finally it adds up." Miles almost capered. It came out a stagger when Elena lurched away from the wall to catch. Yes. "It's insane," said Oster. "So that's Cavillo's surprise." "That's not the end of it, I bet. Cavillo's drop forces are bigger than ours by far, but no way are they big enough to take on a fully settled planet like Vervain on the ground. They can only raid and run." "Raid and run, right," smiled Metsov equably. So this is maybe I picked a bad section, but so there's all this intrigue, and he's Admiral Naismith, but this guy knows him from when they were at the academy together, and he was his commanding officer, and now he's this traitor. So it's like Space Bond, right? It's like Space James Bond, but Miles Vorkosigan is like the James Bond character in this saga, and yeah, that's okay. I don't like I don't like overmen. I just don't. Overmen make everything boring. Everything. You have your own pitfalls with characters that are inherently human, but those pitfalls are natural, right? We can all identify with those pitfalls. With somebody having a soft spot for somebody else, or not liking a certain type of work, or but not it's hard to identify with somebody who's kind of perfect in every way, and frankly I don't know. I didn't feel that this particular installment of this did a really good job of kind of building the suspense, and I don't or making me understand how important it was that things were what things were at stake. I didn't care that they were bombing Vervain, and I didn't care that they had plans to take over whatever else, and or that Admiral Naismith, whatever. It didn't grab me. I don't know how else to kind of put it. The story kind of missed the mark. And here's the thing: Lois McMaster Bujold caught my attention and won this award with 3 books I really like. And so it's weird to have this one, right? Where, but part of the problem with this is there are a couple problems. First off, if you're going to give an award every year, no matter what, some years the the nominees are going to be a stronger field of candidates than other years. So maybe this book was the best thing in 1992. The other thing, too, is that when you write a series of books, some of your books are going to hit and some of your books are going to miss. Almost without fail, that's the case. Like, nobody else is Arthur C. Clarke for the Rama series. Even Arthur C. Clarke completely, like, I mean, the 2000 series just turns to garbage. Like, it's just, the third book in that series is trash. So, I mean, if you're going to write a series of 15 books, you know, people are going to like some of them and not like others. You know, nobody is going to love every book in the, you know, in the Vorkosigan saga. Like, some characters you're not going to like, some characters you're not going to care about, some series of events are going to kind of miss you, some series of events are really going to hit you. You're really going to like Berayer because you really like Cordelia, but you're really not going to like the Vor game because you don't like Miles. And maybe that's it. Maybe I just don't like Miles. Because, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, Cordelia is kind of fun with how much she struggles, but how confident she is. Miles is kind of the same character template, right? He's got all these disadvantages. People expect way less of him and underestimate him, and he's incredibly talented. But the thing about Miles is, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. There's no good reason that Miles should be incredibly talented. Like, aside from the fact that his parents are both exceptionally talented. And that's maybe the problem for me, is I get that, like, you know, Errol Vorkosigan has grown up in this, I guess, the idea that Louise McMaster Bujold kind of gives the explanation as that he just had the right attitude to have to fight his way to where he is. And that's okay. That's okay. I mean, I guess it's an all right concept, right? That because he's disabled, he's physically disabled, he's had to fight very hard to be where he is, which is fine. It's fine. What I guess what I would like to see more of is him kind of fail, right? Like is him kind of have to deal with, you know, his disability being an actual disability rather than just this thing that everybody sees, and then he's like, yeah, but I'm the most capable person in the room. I mean, I guess that's it, right? Like, yeah, and I don't know why the parallel doesn't bother me on the other side, right? Is because, I think it's because Cordelia is a rational compromiser, right? So, like, she comes into a situation and she goes, well, this society is this way, so I have to do these things, but I'm going to win my battles where I can fight them. And, like, rationally fight these battles against the way people think about women and stuff like that. Miles doesn't do that. Miles doesn't go, like, well, clearly I'm disabled, and, like, the society treats disabled people this way, so, like, I'll win my battles here and I'll lose my battles here. He doesn't do that. It's all or nothing for him, and he wins every time. And that kind of bothers me, is, like, there's no kind of... There's no danger if your character wins every battle and they take on every battle. Like... And I would like to see, and I'm not saying that that's the case in the whole saga, and just in this book, your introduction to Miles, and this probably wasn't the saga's introduction to Miles, it was my introduction to Miles, really paints him in a light I'm not great with. I just didn't like him as a character. And since he's the focus of this book, I didn't really love the book. So, is it written okay? It's fine. It's fine. It's mid-range, kind of, you know, decent sci-fi, right? It's okay sci-fi. The plot makes sense. There's stuff going on. There's spaceships. There's, you know, planets and spies and things like that. So, you know, if that's what you want, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. It's not as bad as Down Below Station, but it's, you know, it's not as good as Berayer. So now, when we come back, next week, what we're going to talk about is another book in the saga called Mirror Dance, which won the Hugo Award in 1995. And that book, like, when I tell you about that book, this is going to be fun. So, when we come back, Mirror Dance. Bye, everybody.